Hi there, I'm Don Klein, and this is my wife, Perry Klein. I have some very important issues to discuss with you today in this 12-part series. This is pretty serious stuff, and it needs our full attention. I'm sure you will see why. The first segment is about 9 minutes long, but the rest are only 2 or 3 minutes each. Unfortunately, I found my voice doesn't hold up if I talk very long, so I've asked Perry if she would be willing to fill in for me. She has very graciously agreed, so I will turn it over to her. Thank you for joining us.
It has often been claimed that America, the United States of America, is unique in all the world and exceptional. In fact, American exceptionalism is touted by patriots and people who want to sound like patriots as a major feature of our country. There is some truth to that claim in terms of accomplishments, since we did win the Second World War. We do have the most robust economy in the world, when the Republicans unchain it from the strict controls and limitations imposed by Democrats. And the phrase free country is bandied about a lot by U.S. citizens, and for that matter, everyone else in the world who wants to come here. But other nations have resources and hard workers too. What makes everyone want to come here? What makes America so unique and special? Short answer: because the USA is the only nation on the planet to recognize by law that private, personal, individual rights are beyond the reach of government. Other nations have lists of so-called rights, but they're not rights. Not really. Their rights are actually privileges issued by government, and they may be revoked individually or generally whenever the government deems it is in its interest to do so. And in most cases, government prohibits any information about the revocation being published privately or in the media, which, by the way, is one of the reasons we have freedom of speech. We have the right to tell people about it when government is getting out of hand. Nowhere else in the world is that right recognized by the people or government. The communist insurgency infesting our nation since Comintern in the 1920s, today represented mostly by the Democratic Party and a few Republicans in name only, dearly want our nation to be just like the rest. They are demanding we become like all the rest because our principles of government prevent their ascendancy to absolute power. But looking at specifics, there are several factors that make America unique in actual fact and exceptional in actual fact, well beyond our accomplishments as a nation. For the purpose of this discussion, there are 4 specific things in the fundamental structural design of our country that makes it unique in all the world and exceptional in all the world. There are other reasons too, but these are the main ones. 1. We're the only nation in the entire world in which we are, or at least we're supposed to be, governed entirely by law, and not by the arbitrary whim of kings or dictators or tyrants or the commissars hired to harass the people and eat out their substance. In our country, unlike any other, no one may lawfully be required to perform or not perform any action just because some government jackboot or self-important little martinet says so. There has to be a law giving that government agent the authority to say so. And that law has to meet the standards of the constitutional delegation of power. That is the rule of law. The purpose of the rule of law is to protect the rights of the people from tyranny and oppression. We are the first, only, and possibly last nation on the planet to recognize the right of the citizen to own property and to be left alone in his use of it, so long as his use of it does not interfere with the rights of anyone else. That's how it's supposed to be, at least, and we, as citizens, have an obligation to restore that right. President Trump is helping in that effort by severely restricting the EPA, among other jackboot agencies. 3. Here's a constitutional principle that has illegally and fraudulently been taken away from us by enemy action. Our monetary system was designed constitutionally to be of intrinsic value, gold and silver coin. Because of that standard, for the first 100 years or so of our nation's existence, labor was paid for by intrinsic wealth, not forgotten worthless paper IOUs representing units of the national debt. As a result, for the first 100 years of our nation's history, the average unskilled laborer could earn enough to support his family and send his kids to primary school. Those kids, knowing how to read and write and having a smattering of math, grew up to become semi-skilled shop workers and more effective laborers, and they earned more as a result. They could earn enough to send their kids to high school to earn literature and civics and history and American government. And they became apprentices in the trades and earned enough to support their families and send their kids to colleges and universities. Thus, there was a constant upward mobility from unskilled laborer to engineers and scientists and doctors and captains of the industry. For the first time in history, the unskilled, dirt-poor tenant farmers' kids had the opportunity to rise above their lot in life and make a life for themselves better than their parents. Two historical statements supporting the above. One, the book published at the turn of the century titled 1900, setting forth all the accomplishments of the first 100 years of our nation's history. It pointed out that during the first century of our national existence, because of our monetary system of intrinsic value, the average working man, woman, and child improved their living standard more than in the previous 25 centuries. Imagine 25 centuries of dirt-poor, bare subsistence living where everything you or your ancestors or your descendants do or have belongs to your lord of the manor, who has the absolute power of life and death over you. 2. Early in our nation's history, the Establishment Times of London editorialized as follows: if that mischievous financial policy, which had its origin in the North American Republic, i.e., honest, constitutionally authorized, no-debt money, should become indurated down to a fixture, then that government will furnish its own money without cost. It'll pay off its debts and be without debt to the international bankers. It will become prosperous beyond precedent in the history of the civilized governments of the world. The brains and wealth of all countries will go to North America. That government must be destroyed, or it will destroy every monarchy on the globe. It was for these reasons the international bankers of autonomous city of London have infiltrated and interfered with every stage of our nation's development throughout our history. Until today, they once again have control of the economy of their colonies. Illegal Federal Reserve Act 1913. They have stolen the intrinsic value of gold and silver coin from our monetary system. Illegal Gold and Silver Acts 1934 and 1968. They have committed mutiny against the states that created the federal government and kicked them out of the Senate. Illegal and prohibited 17th Amendment 1913. They have established an illegal direct tax on the people. Illegal 16th Amendment 1913. All of these illegal and unconstitutional acts have affected and damaged the ability of Americans to work, to prosper, to receive and keep the fruits of their labor, and to exercise and enjoy the benefits of liberty. And 4, this might well be the most effective factor in making our nation unique and exceptional in all the world. The right of citizens to keep and bear arms is more than 1,500 years old, according to written records. The founders of our nation not only recognized the right of citizens to keep and bear arms, but specifically prohibited government at any level from having anything to say about it. Let me say that again in specifics. The founders prohibited the government from exercising any power not delegated to it by the U.S. Constitution. See the 10th Amendment. The founders prohibited the government from interfering in any right retained by the people. See the 9th Amendment. And the founders specifically prohibited the federal government, the state governments, and local governments from interfering with the right of the people to keep and bear arms. See the 2nd Amendment. And that prohibition extends to any non-government institution created by government, such as limited liability corporations. If government does not have the lawful delegated power It cannot delegate the power to its creations. The purpose of all this blanket prohibition against government interference in our rights was to prevent government from treating our rights as mere privileges and revoking them, whether for legitimate sounding or nefarious reasons or any reason at all, as they do in other countries. And yes, our right to keep and bear arms does protect and was intended to protect weapons of war. In fact, it was intended to protect all the arms carried by the well-equipped infantryman, including hand grenades, but not including poison gas. The founders had just fought a war for independence using weapons of war. They wanted the people to have weapons of war in case they have to do it again. The biggest problem facing America today is the ignorance of its citizens as to their individual rights and their importance, and the fact that the exclusive purpose of government has been, since the founding, to protect our rights, to facilitate our liberty under the rule of law, and to protect our republican form of government against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Since Comintern in the 1920s, our nation has endured a communist insurgency that has infiltrated every government and private institution of our nation. It has debased our currency, committed mutiny against the sovereign nation states that created our federal government, and prohibited state control over it. It has steadily, increment by steady increment, eroded our rights, our education, and ramped up their power in preparation for the second Bolshevik Revolution, which is underway as I speak. That ugly revolution will get a lot more violent before it's finally and ultimately eradicated by a free people who will not put up with it. I have more to say on this and other related subjects in the coming segments of this series. Thank you for your time.